We got new content coming out. That means it's value surge time, and I got the perfect dude to help me talk about this. What's up, guys? MtgJedi here. How you doing today? I am so pumped to have my dude Bront on the channel here talking about a value surge for the new Faction Wars hard mode. I guess there's been some questions about whether this is actually coming. It's coming, and it should be coming soon. Bront, how are you doing today, my dude? So glad you could be here today.
Yeah, doing pretty good. Nice early morning. We got some fun maintenance to play with, but now that is over, we are here to talk Faction Wars. We did a little bit on my channel, so that was definitely kind of fun. Go check that out as well. I'm sure there will be links and all that fun stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, we're looking forward to this because, you know, you and I are Faction Wars dudes, and this is always a fun topic.
I've got a bad feeling about it.
Quiet. You got a really good feeling about this.
Yeah, for sure. We love this. This is our thing, right? And yeah, I'll have the links to your channel and our video down there for everybody. Make sure you go check that out. We're going to be doing one value surge champion per faction, and we're going to start at the end with Sylvan Watchers. I would say we're probably not going to mention mythicals, but...
Oh, wait, you serious?
You know, you can if you want to. Who would you like to go first today, sir?
I think people are going to find a lot of use for Duden, actually.
Love that. This. Yes.
Yeah, this dude's absolutely awesome, and basically a lot of his utility aroused around that A1, which is actually awesome, is 50% chance of removing a random debuff from all allies. Sounds kind of lame at start, other than obviously it's a 50% chance to do, you know, Doom Priest style, but he can then taunt and counterattack with that A3. And so as a result, everyone's attacking him, so he's constantly counterattacking, and therefore he's constantly going to be cleansing your team. And then he's just going to last a while, and it's going to be very, very useful to keep you clean of debuffs while giving you all of that cleansing. And I think that's going to be very, very critical, especially when you have situations where I would not be surprised if you're going to have multiple debuffs on you against some of these bosses.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. And I think that you're absolutely right. For me, I think that it's hard to find good damage dealers here. And especially if you don't have the Dithy, Ruella, hybrid accuracy and damage build, I think it can be hard to find enough damage here. So I'm going to call out Orn. I don't think that everybody has an Orn built on their account, but I think that with his poisons and poison sensitivity in his kit, he could really carry you, especially with the full support mode that is the rest of this faction.
Yeah, I think that's great, and I do think that unlike the hard dungeons, I don't think they're going to hard counter poisons with these bosses necessarily.
Yeah, I hope not, at least. I really, really hope that they incentivize the people who have the faction unity champions to actually use them. With that being said, I'm not going to call that out, okay? I think that, you know, if you have them, that'd be amazing. But if not, then, you know, you should still be able to clear it without that. I like Shadowkin a lot. And I think that one of the champions that nobody or very few people know about for Shadowkin Faction Wars is Umitogi. And I want to call her out here. Now, my favorite part about her is her passive. You get this complete damage mitigation. So for waves where they have super hard hitting or you don't get the crowd control you're wanting, she can be the champion that just soaks everything. And she was the reason how I beat Faction Wars 21 boss back when I had a much smaller roster. Now, you can also put a perfect veil on her. So once you soak that first hit, then she can't be targeted on the second hit unless it's an AoE. So her kit works really well together. And then since she's an attack-based champion, I never got to build her for like damage to like try that out, and that's something that I'm real excited about. Plus, with relics, I think that the little veil relic could be really good on her as well. Have you ever used her? And what do you think about this pick here?
No, I think that's an interesting call out. And again, I think that depending on what the needs are for the faction war stuff, I think that could be an interesting and great call out. And no, I've not used her, but I think finding value in some of these interesting champions that people aren't thinking about or have kind of left the meta in some cases, because not all of my picks are going to be like this out of the left field, but there's a lot of good champions that have kind of been left behind because of the way metas have changed. But we're back to a wave clear, wave control meta, along with hopefully, I don't want to say more traditional bosses, but maybe bosses that are going to be vulnerable to things that some of the current dungeon bosses aren't, like poisons we mentioned beforehand, for example. So yeah, choices like this I think are interesting. So I think that's an interesting pick. I think it could be fun.
Plus, I love the way she looks. It's just like aesthetically with the size, like shout out to my dude Raphael Ninja Turtles. Anyway, who's your pick for value?
I'm gonna go legendary here actually, and I'm gonna talk about Kyoku, who is somebody who I think everyone loved when she came out, and then she really fell off because she does okay damage, but not top tier. But the damage mitigation of her ability to block damage with that ally protection cannot be understated.
For sure.
Because you're taking less than half damage with that ally protection, and she takes none of it.
Yeah.
Plus, because you have block damage, you can build her to absolutely nuke and not worry about the problem. For those of you not aware, ally protectors take damage from critical hits based off of their own crit damage. So you don't want to build them with crit damage because you don't want them suddenly doing more damage themselves than otherwise.
Right.
She doesn't have that problem because she's got the block damage. And then she brings the decrease attack as well, which is going to be great.
Yes.
She has a chance of putting the burns out there. She doesn't put it for some reason. I know that mechanic's always been a little weird, but generally you're not going to get the burns. Every once in a while you might, and you're not going to complain because, oh darn, you got burns.
Yeah.
And she hits pretty hard on this ability, and that A1 absolutely smacks as well.
Oh, really?
And you get a weekend out of it, too.
Cool. I love that pick. I like to say that Shadowkin is my favorite G.I. Joe villain faction. We got Kyoku and Lady Kimmy. They would just fit so well in that show. But anyway, I love that pick. Kyoku's a champion that a lot of people have just sitting in their vaults. So great call out there, dude. Great call out there. Love that. And decrease attack is going to be a clutch debuff. All right, on to dwarves. If you're ready, you can hit up the dwarves.
You know what? I'm going to talk about one that I've actually built for my free to play that I've been pretty pleasantly surprised with, and that's Filja.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. First of all, our A3 is actually kind of nice because it's got turn meter fill and healing, so she actually keeps herself alive as an attack-based nuker, which is kind of nice.
Yeah.
She's got a turn meter depleting A2. I mean, she's no geomancer here, but I mean, who is?
Yeah.
And then the A1 gives you some target max HP damage, which is nice. It doesn't hurt against some of the bosses. I'm sure that can be very interesting. She's even got this passive here where if she doesn't have enough buffs, she increases her own damage as well.
That's cool.
From an epic standpoint, she's an easy champion to invest in for any account to build for some damage, to build for other stuff, to book out. And I think she gives a combination of good control and good damage.
Yeah.
And that turn meter control that she does as well, I think is going to be very, very helpful, especially when we're talking maybe having to deal with 200 to 250 speeds on some of these champions.
Yeah, right on. I love that. I love that, especially for the people who don't have Geomancer. You know, Geomancer is a very well-known champion. You have him built. If you have him, you're going to use him. It's funny that you picked a damage dealer, though, because I am, too. There's so many good epics, though. Like, you can definitely... I mean, we don't know for sure, but I would assume you can beat this faction, even on hard mode, with all epics. With that being said, I'm picking Gala. This is one of my OG favorite champions in the game, and her skill set ignores defense. And then if you put yourself a savage, lethal, merciless set on her, she's getting extra turns, she's ignoring tons of defense, and she's protecting herself with shields. I think you can put a bolster set in your team, you can put a blood shield accessory on her, shield champions from the faction, all pair really well with her, and she does insane damage. I have a +4, I think 6-star Awakened. Like, I'm ready to go kill some people with Gala, for sure.
Yeah, she's a mini Rhodos is actually what a lot of people described her with, because her kit feels like that. Because it's hard to describe why it does, but she gets extra turns and she protects herself in ways that means she's hard to kill compared to a normal attack-based damage dealing champion.
Yeah, very,
very good call out. I love Melga. Awesome. Or Gala, sorry, not Melga.
Melga's great too, though.
Melga's good too, yeah.
All right, on to Knight's Rev. What is it my turn to go first on Knight's Rev?
It is.
Can we just all say we hope and pray that Fortis is the answer? maybe we don't want it to be. I'm gonna go with my first legendary pick here and say Tomb Lord. Tomb Lord is one of the OG, like, crazy good champions that has just been kind of swept aside just due to the fact that you don't need him. Recently, I saw somebody use him in a Chimera team. That was insane. But he brings a lot of great things here. He brings turn meter manipulation, decrease attack, decrease defense. And then he also brings a ton of poisons, which I've been, an advocate of it for the hard mode faction wars. And then the A1 decreased speed. You do need to build him with crit rate, which is kind of dumb. But the decreased speed is going to be really helpful, not just for bosses, but if we're right about the speed of the waves, putting decreased speed on some of these champions is going to be really helpful. I hate that his aura is accuracy in Doom Tower. I hate that. So maybe he'll even get a buff, on some of these cooldowns and his aura. But finding somebody else with an accuracy aura shouldn't be too hard. But I really like the combination of his kit.
Yeah, I love my Tomb Lord. Tomb Lord was actually in my Fire Knight Hard 10 team for a while when I moved to a double newt team, because he's got the triple hit A1 with the decreased speed.
Yeah.
Very, very good. And then the wave clear, that decreased defense and decreased attack, it's really kind of hard to beat.
Yeah.
And he's got some turn meter control in that too sometimes. It's a weird turn meter control thing, but it's great.
But something's better than nothing.
Yeah. I do want to say, I'm not going to say Fortis is the answer, but Fortis actually is not as bad as a lot of people think, because he's got the passive where he revives himself. I've actually had him solo normal faction wars before. So
that's cool. Yeah, that's cool.
So yeah, he is definitely a good champion. I think we're going to see a rise of Miscreated Monster.
Ooh, love that. My first favorite epic.
Yeah, I mean, I love this dude, and I don't use him enough, and I feel bad for it. But you've got the ally protection, which I think is going to be a great damage mitigation thing, especially against some bosses. This is one of the best damage mitigations out there.
Yeah.
And he's got a massive heal for himself on that as well. And he's got a massive HP battery, so that's even a better heal than you think it is. He's got the AoE stun as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's not a 100% stun, but you know what? 50% stun is 50% chance to knock out half the team you're fighting against.
Yeah.
And that massive shield as well when he does some damage. You absolutely build this dude for damage. And you got a chance to do a stun and a decreased defense on the A1 even. Yeah. And then he throws fears out if people are attacking with those ally protections as well. Yeah. He is a really, really good champion. You know, a lot of fun, and I think he will. I mean, he could actually be some of the keys to doing some of the special 3-star things as well, just because of some of the stuff that he brings overall in his kit.
Yeah. And, like, his base HP is better than a lot of legendaries. You know, like, his stats are very, very nice. I will say that I'm looking forward to weird, fun things like Miscreated Monster and Provoke alongside Fortis in the same team. I don't know about you. That's what I want to do.
And then throw what's her name? Yeah, the Tomb Angel. Because she throws fears out as well. So you get the fears with Fortis, plus the
Yeah.
fears with her, plus the fears with Miscreated Monster, and you get a fear-concentrated team, and then you can make Fortis your actual MVP.
All right, let's do it. That's going to be my plan.
All right, I'm going Ophidius. Now, although I do fair, I think this is one of the few places Ophidius will actually be really useful. He's very underwhelming.
No. Have you tried him since his buff?
I only have him since the buff, and I was not super impressed with him. But
bro, I got wiped in live arena gold 4 the other day by him.
But yeah, actually, you know, let's actually call him out because I think actually this is the wave content where he's going to be good.
Okay.
And I think actually this is the content where his Form 2 is actually going to be critical.
I totally agree.
That Form 2's got so much control in there.
Yep.
So you've got the A1, increased accuracy, not a big deal, but the A2's got an AoE stun and continuous heals on all allies. That's huge. Mm-hmm. You got a provoke on the A2. I unfortunately think you're going to need to book him because 5-turn cooldown on that provoke and then a 4-turn cooldown on that stun. Get those both to 3-turn cooldowns. The enemy's not taking a turn, and when they are, they're attacking him.
Yeah. If you don't have the books for him, you could try switching between forms so that you have other powerful abilities that are not on cooldown as well.
Yeah, and then again, he's a good damage dealer overall with burns on the other form. So, but I think that the wave content, this is finally the type of content where his form here could be very, very valuable for folks. Certainly got to throw an honorable mention out there for Madame Ceres, just to say if you don't have a mythical. Madame Ceres, obviously a Void Epic, but I think that her decreased defense and the strip buffs is going to be very, very critical if you don't have that mythical champion there.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Well, for me, I think that my value surge is going to be... There's so many good options here, but the one that I really want to mention... No, I'm going to mention 2. I have to. For Curse City, I have been loving Loria, and I think she could be really helpful here. So honorable mention to Loria. Who I'm going to pick, though, is Sylar. I don't think anybody's using Sylar anymore. And she's got the AoEs, okay? She's got the 2 AoEs, so that's perfect for whatever set you want to put her in. Stun, Provoke, Hex... Like, whatever gear set you want to bring to your team, I think she could be so helpful. But also, we were talking about turn meter boost being, like, one of the key things that you might want to bring in your teams for these on your channel. And she does all of this in one kit. So, I like the speed and faction crypts. Do you think that's going to work out for us with the Sylars?
I love Sylar. Weird little fact, on my main account, back when there wasn't a Gold 5 and Gold 4 was hard to get into and stay in, I was able to get into stay in there with a team of High Katoon, Sylar, Madame Ceres, and I think it was Leorius, because I had pulled Leorius was my first Void Legendary. So,
sick.
Absolutely awesome.
Super jealous.
I know you'll appreciate that too.
Yes,
but she is absolutely amazing. She was good in Arena. She's great for the Doom Tower wave control. And again, this is Sylar is actually a pretty good fill-in for the Mythic I mentioned, just because she brings a lot of option as stun set to give you a lot of that X control, and that turn meter can actually be better than the control debuffs in many cases as well.
Yeah, for sure. All right, sweet. Oh, man, I'm actually really excited about Dark Elves. It's so interesting of a faction for Faction 1. All right, on to Undead. Undead. There's, like, so many options for Undead that I think that we could mention here. Like, if you have Fabian, you just put him in the team. You lock down everybody. You reset your abilities, and you're good to go. But I think the champion that people have that they need to build is going to be Knave of Hearts. I have a sweet video on Knave of Hearts, and I am pro Knave. I think that Knave is, like, super, super good for specific things. Number 1, he is great in Arena with Sun Wukong. And number 2, he's insane in Phantom Shogun, which is going to be really important in the upcoming tournament. But his skill set of balancing the levels of the allies while stopping somebody from healing and putting increased defense. Like, wow, what a powerful ability for Faction Wars. And then the fact that you can make your enemies target him, as well as healing your whole team. Like, I can't think of a better champion to just, like, do everything that you want to do. He's, like, helping your team survive in so many ways.
Yeah, I think that, and I think that because he's a taunt champion, I think
Yeah.
that taunt is one of these things that this wave content is going to show the use of taunt more
Finally.
than other places we've had a plan to use it. So I think that that's
Yes.
going to be absolutely great as well. Yeah, he's always been one of these champions where I've struggled to find where he would be great in.
Mhm.
But yes, this type of wave content I think is where he would be great in. So I think
Yeah.
this is going to be a great for him.
Yeah.
Um,
Cool.
I'm going to stick with legendary as well. I'm going
Okay.
to go with one of the ones the first legendary I pulled on my free to play, Morgaine.
Yeah, I thought about mentioning her. She's so good for Curse City. What do you like about her, though?
Oh yeah, I mean, well, first of all, you talk about the block healing. That passive, passive block healing on the lowest champion, and it's unremovable. That is going to be so huge and so clutch, especially if we have war. The Shiramani wave is a good example of that, where it was basically a damage check. Well, with Morgaine, it wasn't a big damage check because she was making sure that people got down and stayed down because it wasn't removable. That's probably going to be clutch for some of these waves that are going to be super tanky. Plus, speed kills. So she's got the speed aura, she's got turn meter drain and turn meter fill and increased speed. And I think very underrated is that A2 that's got a single all buff steal with True Fears, AoE, and decrease accuracy on the boss.
Yeah.
And decrease accuracy on the boss, don't sneeze at that as well.
Yeah.
That means that some of the passive resistance you have, as well as you have increased resistance for some reason. I don't think there's anybody who has increased resistance in Undead. But if there is, that could actually be, those combinations could make you immune to boss debuffs.
Yeah, for sure. Now,
and an A1 decreased speed.
Yeah, and the A1 decreased speed. Can we manipulate this? So, like, if I have somebody go before her, target somebody and deal a little bit of damage, then can we, like, basically make the heal reduction go wherever we want it to be?
Yeah, as long as it targets the lowest current HP percentage champion. So on the other team, so you can control this and have this move around by spreading the damage around a little bit, which isn't always what you want to do, but this is a reason you might actually want to do that.
Nice. Nice. Love that.
Yeah, and she actually pairs really well with Fabian now that a lot of people have him because she throws the extra fears out there as well. Those two have probably solved Faction Wars for me on my free to play, where I think I could probably get through 21 if I had enough days and keys to do it.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, moving on to Demonspawn. I think you're up first here.
I think I am too, and probably another one I think is going to have a value surge. And again, I'm using my own experience from the free to play with this. I think Tyrant is probably going to get some more play.
Oh, I love that.
He's an underrated champion because he's just good but not spectacular. But that's really kind of what you're looking for here. That AoE burn, and it's a 3-turn burn too. It's actually a pretty long burn.
It just stays up the whole time. 3-turn duration, 3-turn cooldown. It's real good.
And then you've got an ally protection with increased defense, and if you have to use him unbooked, obviously you'd prefer to use him booked. But even unbooked, this is on a 4-turn cooldown. It's decent. It works particularly well. But the increased defense is hard to argue with. He's a defense-based champ, and has got A1 that heals himself actually really, really well.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, his passive is just kind of nice, where HP burn. So it gives you some AoE protection effectively for everybody on your team with those AoE burns.
Yeah.
And a usable aura.
Yeah.
Just an all-around really good champion. Again, not spectacular. There's nothing that says that, okay, this is the best champion in the faction. He's clearly not the best champion in this faction.
Right.
But he's a very good champion that can provide a lot of utility to just about anybody in this type of content.
Yeah, love that. Love that. I'm going to pick a champion who does not go well with Tyrant. In fact, it's the opposite of Synergy, but I think it's just really helpful. Granted, I do love me a Tyrant, but I want to call out Magnar here. I still think that Magnar is the most underrated damage dealer in the game. If you know, you know. But Magnar can really smack people. The problem is he places an extra hit on enemies without HP burn. So you don't want to build him with accuracy. You don't want to put him in your Tyrant team if you can avoid it. And he's an HP-based nuker. So I love him as your damage dealer. If he has a little bit of accuracy, he can go decrease defense. If you end up having to put him in the team with your Tyrant, you got 100% decrease defense A1, which is kind of insane. So it's not a complete non-bow, but I love Magnar HP defense-based champions as your damage dealers for hard content because they're just survivable.
Yeah, and actually, if you build him with accuracy and you have to pair him with a burner, that A3 becomes really good.
Oh, with the debuff spread. Yeah. That's true. Yeah, and all of his abilities hit hard. So he's pretty easy to build for damage. And on a lot of people coming up in the game, he should be a damage dealer in one of your teams. He definitely should be.
And you still build him for damage even if you're building him with other HP burners. Yes, he's not going to have that big double nuke. It's still a decent single nuke.
Yeah.
He'll still be just a tanky damage dealer for you.
Yeah, for sure. All right, next up is going to be Orcs.
What have I done?
On the Orcs, I have a love-hate relationship with Orcs. I had the hardest time getting Orcs on this account, but there are so many good ones. I know that for me, I've talked a ton on my channel about Zargala, but I'm not going to mention that. I'm going to mention Maruka. And I love this champion. I think that she's really amazing, and she brings some cool stuff to your team. Revive on death, removing all debuffs from a target and healing them, and then she does have the decreased speed. She has this passive that I actually think could be really helpful for the hard mode faction wars as well. Pretty survivable champion, and basically the type of champion that you want to support your team. And then if you build her, maybe you use her for your Sand Devil team, maybe you don't, but there's a possibility that you'll use her in other places as well.
Yeah, I think it's a good call out that somebody I wouldn't think of. I've never been super impressed with her kit, but just reading it here from the lens of faction wars when you have some of those limits, yeah, that could be a particularly good champion. I think I'm going to go with one of my favorite epics in the Orcs is Tuhak. I think does not get the love that this dude deserves.
You're totally right. He is very good.
Yeah, he's got the AoE decreased speed with an increased speed on himself, unfortunately, but the decreased speed's on everybody, so that's fine. It gives him some healing if he's under. Basically, he's got some survival mechanics if he's low on HP. They increase some of his other abilities as well. He's got a bunch of turn meter control and stealing and speed degradation, and he can actually smack. In fact, until they buffed King Garag, which was kind of funny, he had the same multipliers as King Garag.
Really?
Which meant that he did almost the same amount of damage as King Garag as a Void Epic.
Yeah.
And brought more utility to your kit otherwise. Now, Garag's been buffed a couple times. Garag is certainly a better damage dealer now.
Yeah.
But that actually lets you know that, Garag was supposed to be an arena damage dealer nuker, and Tuhak could out damage him or at least stay on par with him for a while.
Right.
That's how good that dude is.
Right.
And even the A1 that's got a chance to cooldowns, I think that could be very, very good and is very underrated on the waves.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of us, we just have Seer. We're going to build Seer teams with some kind of control till we get back around. But for people who don't have Seer, you're going to need other options. Tuhak is a great one, and you'll need like a balanced, survivable team. You're going to go from either quick wipe everyone or slow down, control them, do some damage, have a normal-ish team. So I love that call out for Tuhak.
Yeah, and there is no reset in Orcs, so you're going to have to at least deal with one wave without the Seer nuke, or at least survive your way to the Seer nuke.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, for sure. All right, who are you picking in Skinwalkers, my friend?
Underrated. Oh, Skinwalkers. There's so many good ones. I want to talk about one I don't talk about that much, so we're actually going to go legendary, and I think Samson is criminally underrated.
Oh, love that. One of the only Skinwalkers I don't have.
Yeah. He's got an extra turn mechanic, so he's got increased accuracy on all champions and increased crit damage, which is a great support ability on that A3. And it's the extra turn, so it's a 4-turn cooldown, but it becomes a 3-turn cooldown. He's got that attacks all enemies, removes increased debuffs beforehand. You don't need to build him with any accuracy. I usually don't. Extra hit if he kills an enemy. That seems unfortunate if he's not killing somebody, but once people are worn down, he gets one kill and then he gets a bunch of other kills out of it. So that's great. And that A1 stun chance is super annoying. And I think this is probably the thing. Most people have faced him and say, oh my God, I hate that champion. He's so annoying. Every time I attack him, he counterattacks and I get stunned. And that's what he does. He counterattacks and he stuns. And he's super tanky because he's an HP-based champion and he can build him as a damage dealer. And he just brings a lot of wave control and support in wave-based content, which I think Samson's going to really kind of shine for that sort of thing. He's not a great damage dealer, but you're not looking necessarily for the best damage dealers for this because you're not going to have the best damage dealers in every faction. So he brings a lot of good utility for a damage dealer, which makes him very useful.
I really like the idea of him in like a stun or provoke set as well. He counterattacks when he's hit. So, like, if you put him in Provoke, you AoE, you get some people in Provoke, they have to attack him, then he attacks back and stuns them. Like, he's doing a lot in this one kit, so I love this call-out. I do not have him, but that's a great call-out. I cannot go through this video and not choose Ragash, okay? For those of you who do not know, I have a Ragash army, and I will be trying to clear this faction with my Ragash army. And by Ragash army, let me show you what I mean. It's not letting me back out. Okay, a little bit of spoilers here for future videos, but you know, we'll string you along a little bit. 5 Ragashes that are fully built.
Shadow Clone Jutsu!
Okay, they're not all booked, and they don't all have good gear, but certainly we can beat the faction with 5 Ragashes, right? Either way, I'm going to try. What do I love about him? He has decreased defense and stun. It's just almost unparalleled to have this type of ability together, where you are damaging them and controlling them all in the same ability. I like his A1, it's fine. And then he can boost your team and protect them as well. It's just so good. The automatic Perfect Veil on your attack-based champion if you don't have a Ragash army like me. But yeah, decreased defense stun, right? It's going to be insane.
Yeah, I love Ragash, and it's kind of funny because I've got at least 4 of them myself. So I don't know what it is. It's just, you know, I got him early and I've got him often apparently. So he's a great champion. I love him.
Awesome.
You're up on Lizards.
I'm just gonna go with a go-to, like, amazing faction war champion that if you have been playing for a long time, you may have forgotten about. If you're just clearing faction wars, you already know this champion. I have to pick Broadmaw here. Okay. Like, we need a reviver, and he's the only accessible one in the whole faction. The rare one sucks. You can fuse a Broadmaw, and, like, yeah, if you got, like, Sulfurion or Pythion, you're going to use them, but most people are going to be relying on Broadmaw for this faction. But don't hate on Broadmaw. He's amazing. He has got the block damage on the revival, which is so clutch. Because a lot of times these epic damage dealers, you just revive people and then they die again. And you have to just time it so that they don't die and you can 3-star it. But I love this turn meter boost, the little buffs as well. And then you can put this, like, a little bit of accuracy on him to try to freeze on the A1. I love him in regen gear or with some resistance so that he stays alive, and just like gonna be a super big part of most people's teams.
Yeah, Bronma is, I think, very underrated in the Epic Reviver category because he's a fusion and people can get like an infinite number of him effectively.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, double Broadmaw was a strategy for faction wars if you wanted to. It was worth building a second one if you wanted him to. He's a very, very good champion, and he brings a lot for a Reviver. The only thing he doesn't really bring is the healing, which I always like to have on my Revivers, but there's actually a decent amount of healing that you can find here if you look for it.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's a very, very good champion. Yeah, I think I was trying to think here who to talk about that who's underrated. And the problem is that the lizards are either they're good and you know it, or they're not in most cases. Broadmaw is a good one. I think Skathix, is the other one I think that goes very underrated.
Yeah.
He's the fisherman. He's got all the fish in the basket in the back there. He's got fish tattoos. It's definitely he's got a vibe, definitely. But I think that AoE cleanse with block debuffs is very underrated, even if it's only that is the 2-turn version too. So that's 2 turns on a 4-turn cooldown. It's a nice shield based on his max HP.
Yep.
And again, cleanse super underrated. One of the better ways to make sure if you can't build everybody with defense, you build or not defense but resistance. You build him with resistance, and then he cleanses everybody else.
Yeah.
He's got a buff steal on that A2. It's only a 1 random buff, but again, it's decent with the AOE. And then you've got some decreased speed on the A1 as well. And he's got a chance to save himself if he's going to die in some situations as well.
Yeah.
Very, very good kit overall. Very reliable in a lot of ways. And again, if you got Pytheon, you're probably going to build Pytheon over a Skathix necessarily.
Well, they can work well together too.
Yeah, they could. And actually between the two of them, you probably can keep block debuffs up indefinitely, so you never would have to worry about that. And again, double cleanser means that if one of them does fail the resistance check, the other one might be available. So
yeah. And like I feel like in this faction there's not that many accessible control champions, so being able to remove any kind of buffs is going to be super helpful. You could even put him in all of these cooldown reducing sets, Merciless, Reflex, all of that stuff. And then that could help proc that multiple times if you're running into buff problems.
Yeah, and just a class shout out before we get out of there too. Rosin doesn't get a lot of love anymore, but I think he could still be actually very good for this stuff. Obviously,
I hope we don't have to. Oh, this is the perfect opportunity, Plarium. Buff Rosin, #buff Rosin. Fill the comments below. Buff Rosin, please.
But you're talking about the strip. He's got the A1 strip that's actually really, really good. From that end, he still's got some functionality, even if, not great in some cases.
It's a story for another day. Needs a complete overhaul.
All right. Ogryn. We're going to go with one of my favorite Ogryn, and we're going to go with Ogryn. Because we were talking about... We were talking about poisons. We were talking about that with the other faction, and this faction has a ton of play with poisons because the faction Unity champion plays with poisons, and you've got Stock the Broken, who is a recent fusion, who is absolutely amazing. Ogryn is a great pair with Stock the Broken.
Yeah,
be a lot of fun.
Yeah,
he's got the 2 poisons, and he's got the continuous heal. He's got a cleanse and a chunky heal on that A3 or the A2, I should say. And then he's got more poisons on the A1, and he's got a 20% speed aura.
Yeah, I love
He's got a better speed aura than some legendary champions, a lot of legendary champions. It's so weird.
Yeah.
Just so good overall. You stick him in regeneration and immortal, and he just stays alive, and you can solo a lot of stuff with him. You're probably not going to be soloing hard mode faction wars with him, but the fact that he can do it means that with some little help, like a Stock the Broken, you could probably just duo it and just carry everybody else along with you if you've got the stock.
Yeah, I absolutely, totally, completely agree. I love that. I absolutely love that. I don't know who I really want to pick here. We all know Bellower's good. Bellower, I mean, it's not like he's underrated or anything, but maybe you haven't used him in a long time. And then, like, we could pick legendaries, and I think that there are legendaries that will be very good, but it's like, who do you actually have that's a legendary? I think a lot of these could actually be good for this content. Maybe even all of the legendaries could be good. But I think I'm going to pick Wazgar. I want this guy to be good so badly, okay? I really like this reflect damage shield buff. In Ogryn, it's like, are you using man-eaters to be unkillable? Like, or how are you surviving? Like, it depends on your roster if you have a good control champion or not. It's very specific and heavily reliant on legendaries. So this is going to really help you survive. And then he has the heal to go alongside of it with the counterattack. And then, obviously, we have the quad hitter on the A1 that also has a heal. I don't remember that this has a heal often enough, but that's going to really help your team all in one champion's kit. So, I'm hoping Wazgar is going to be amazing. I always wanted to use him, and I think his kit is really well suited for Faction Wars.
Yep. I think he'll be interesting. I think he's got some fun. I still think that reflect damage needs some sort of buff or change.
Yeah.
Just because the way it works, reflect damage is only dangerous when it's on the enemy team most of the time, which is very unfortunate. So, and I don't know how to buff it without making it worse for the enemy team having it necessarily either. So,
yeah, I don't know either.
But it's a way to get some extra damage. I do want to honorably mention throw out Gerda. Just because she is a free champion that you can now get. We're talking about poisons being good for the wave. She's actually a pretty solid poisoner for wave stuff. And the reason she gets a lot of hate is because by the time you get her, you traditionally don't need her for a lot of content. But for this content, where you might actually have gotten her and you didn't need it necessarily, she could still bring some decent value, especially if you're going to go with the poison team of the Eurogrim and the Stock the Broken, for example.
Yeah.
She could be a third poisoner in there as well. It could be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and even if you don't have those other champions, like the poison plus the weaken, combined with your typical Ugo that's probably going to be in every team, then you have decreased defense weaken. Like, it's a really good pairing with Ugo. So I like that as an honorable mention for sure. Okay, cool. So for Barbarians, I think a lot of these epics are super underrated. But the thing is, there's been so many free champions that you probably don't need to worry too much about Barbarians. But I'm going to mention a legendary anyway that I think is extremely underrated, and that is Jetney. The reason why she's underrated is because you probably have a War Maiden. But if you didn't build a War Maiden, okay, just hear me out here, okay? Jetney, number one, she just is a very common champion that people pull, okay? Because she was a prior fusion. She's just in that slot in the algorithm where a lot of people pull her. You can build her without booking her. But if you do book her, then not only will she help you in hard mode Faction Wars, but also she will help you in Curse City. There's a number of Curse City stages where I actually use her. She has decent multipliers, so you can build her for damage and for accuracy so that you have this decreased defense. You have some damaging abilities here. She's got the ability to stun on the A1. And I don't know if her passive is going to come up, but, is Alsgor in this faction with her?
He is, yeah.
So, like, you might be able to combo it with him and her in the same faction, and those type of synergies can make this content pretty easy.
Yeah, I think that that's a good call out. I think one of the ones I want to call out in this faction is we're going to go with a more recent fusion. I think a lot of people underestimated Esme
Yes.
And I think that she will absolutely show how valuable she is in this faction for people
Yeah.
that did do that fusion.
Totally agree.
Obviously, you've got a speed aura in here. We've been talking about speed boosting champions being good. Haikatune's great for this stuff. I call her out all the time, which is why I'm not going to say she's the underrated choice here. But you've got the increased speed and increased accuracy, makes it very, very easy to build a lot of the champions here. You've got the AoE weaken and block buffs. That is so critical, especially if we end up with another Valk wave of some kind or any of the waves where you don't want those debuffs to be out there, because there is not a stripper in this faction. Actually, that's not true. There is Armands, but if you don't have an Armands, and then, does decent damage with that A1. The increased attack is great for powering up all your other damage dealers. And even her passive is actually really underrated.
Yes.
Giving your highest attack champion 50% turn meter is huge.
Yeah, so obviously you want to go boost your Jetney. But in all seriousness, I actually love the block buffs. That's not something we've mentioned enough in either of these videos we've done. The block buffs can really wreck the opposing waves, and now we have a lot more block buffs champions. So, man, this is a great call out. The only problem is that a lot of people skip this fusion. But if you have her, man, I think she's going to be great.
Yeah, I mean, it really does to show that, what is it, like 2 years ago, if Esme was a fusion, people would say, what do you mean she's worth skipping? Yeah, it's so different where we're at these days.
Yeah.
And I think that, honestly, if it was not in a time where people were just getting burned out for fusions, I think more people would have gone for Esme, because she really is a good champion. I think people looked at like, well, I've got Ugo, why do I need her? And she's better than Ugo for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I am up next on Sacred Order, and there's some interesting champions here. Problem is, a lot of the epics are actually kind of well thought of. So you've got your Fenax. Everyone likes Fenax. He's a great damage dealer. Deacon is a no-brainer. Godseeker is a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Even Cardinal's a no-brainer here.
Yeah,
so you're kind of looking back at the legendaries. Honestly, I think if we go back to the fusion stuff, I think if we look at Gretel, I think Gretel will be another interesting option.
All right.
Yeah, because, sometimes you're just struggling for damage because you can cover a lot of the other supports in the epics. So you go with Gretel as your damage dealer. She's got the AoEs. She's got a decreased defense on the A1. She's got some ability to do turn meter control.
Yeah.
Very good. Ignoring defense will be good for some boss killing.
Yep.
And if you happen to have Hansel as well, then go ahead and use the pair of them. It'll be absolutely amazing. And you've got your damage covered with the two of them combined. Yeah, she's not necessarily the best damage dealer in this faction, but she's a very good damage dealer. And I think this is a place where she actually could shine.
Yeah, totally agree. That's awesome. I love that. And, there are plenty of us who got Hansel and Gretel who want to keep using them. I love that. I think Alice will be in everybody's team. So, the two of those girls could probably do a great job, controlling the enemy waves. As far as, an honorable mention, I want to mention Shamael. We don't often think about him as a faction war champion, but depending on what the waves are, the hard waves for this faction, he could be crucial. But I don't want to leave you with that, because one of my favorite champions in this faction is Astralon. Astralon, just like Ragash, has that AoE stun. And if you have Duchess waves or something, he could be really, really helpful in removing those pesky buffs. Plus, he has that weaken. So whatever decreased defense champion you're using, he pairs really well with that. He can help revive you, which is my favorite part. He, once he kills somebody, can revive somebody. So, if your reviver gets killed, for instance, you still have an out there. But, one of my favorite looking champions in the game, and I definitely need an excuse to use him more.
Yeah, and I think that those two picks actually highlight, I think, what's going to be great about this new Faction Wars is these utility nukers
Yeah.
that people have kind of moved away from because they've moved to pure damage,
Yeah.
they're going to find a revival use in these faction wars because they're good at waves.
Yeah.
And that's really been one of my complaints about the way Raid has managed the wave content for a while. Where do you need wave content? Well, Centranos, but in Centranos, you're limited by which champions you can pick.
Right.
In this case, we're going to have to deal with it in every faction, which means you're technically not limited by that because you're going to be able to use Astral on at least one thing, or Gretel, or Hansel, or anything like that. And I think that all of those are going to be great additions to the way we play Raid.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Moving on to High Elves. I just need to bring back some love for my girl Andrysia. Well, I've actually mentioned her or someone else in a couple collabs over the last couple of months, but I have a special place in my heart for her. And I think that this ability here, this 2-turn stun, is going to get you out of some really tough situations. Again, it's High Elves. High Elves is the easiest faction on normal. I would be surprised if this was hard because you have Arbiter, like one of the best revivers in the game. But, we have the decreased duration of the buffs, we have the stun, and then I don't know if we need the decreased crit damage, it's pretty bad, but you can protect somebody on your team. You want to use a squishy nuker? Fine, you can easily protect them. I love Andrysia, and I think there's a good chance that we might have to use her.
Yeah, she's a mini Necrit.
Yeah,
is a good way to look at her. Not quite as good, but she's not a Void Legendary, so that makes some sense.
Yeah.
Very, very good champion. I just want to give an honorable mention before I go into my actual pick of Royal Guard. I think we'll see some use on him again because he's great. He's got the AoE max HP hit, and he's got that decreased speed that I think's underrated as well.
Yeah.
I want to call it the new Void Epic, actually, Lightward.
Yeah.
I think that she was overlooked in the Fabian fusion. I actually ended up fusing an extra epic on my free-to-play because I liked her so much. I dragged her into Faction Wars, liked her so much, I said, I need to keep her on my free-to-play because she's actually doing a lot of work here.
Yeah.
The A1 stealing random buffs is very underrated, especially if you get her some way to counterattack occasionally. I was just like, who's stealing buffs? What's going on? And then suddenly I was like, oh, yeah, she does that. It's just absolutely amazing. She got turn meter drop on that A2. She hits really, really hard. The A3, she puts increased accuracy and increased crit rate on herself, so she's easier to build. Increase the duration of those buffs if she critical hits as well. So you just build her with crit rate because she's a good crit. She's got an aura of crit rate if for some reason you can't do crit rate, although I don't think that's really going to play in hard particularly well. Just very fun, good damage dealing champion of an epic. I'm not going to say she's absolutely top tier, but especially for progression, and honestly, even in the old faction wars, she can definitely be the damage dealer on this faction if that's what you needed. Yeah,
and for sure, like a lot of people are going to have her, so I love that. I want to make a little quick honorable mention for Ethelyn, because this block active skills Fear, that's definitely the type of thing that can get you through a lot of bad situations. But not trying to spend a lot of time on him. And then you want to wrap up your side of things with Bannerlords here?
Yeah, all right. Bannerlords.
So many good choices, my dude.
There are so many good choices. I think I'm going to call out Archmage Helmet, who I think is power creep, but I think needs to get back in a lot of people's teams.
Yes.
First of all, this dude can smack. So he's got this he's got a critical hit to do all of his stuff anyway. So you might as well build him for some damage. And he actually's got decent multipliers for what he does. It's really weird.
Huh.
But yeah, you can build him with some Savage, build him to do a bunch of damage. He absolutely smacks. He's got AoE stun and AoE turn meter reduction. So he does a turn meter reduction, I think, on the one champion, then stuns everyone else.
Yeah.
It's a little weird to read the kit, but it's again, great control. He's got turn meter fill on his A1, which is great to get him there. Yeah. And then he brings 3 really, really good buffs.
Yeah.
The increased crit rate, again, that's one's kind of iffy, but that increased crit damage can be huge. Mm-hmm. Increased speed is always, always good. And I don't know how much it's going to be important, but he is immune to turn meter reduction. effects, which could be good against some of the waves that could be very dangerous for you, because Terminator control is a problem if somebody's got another team, because we don't expect it on other waves for the most part. So once it happens, it can be really bad.
Love that. Love that. His speed aura is not going to be helpful, unfortunately, but man, that's an excellent call out. Free champion. Everybody can get him. I absolutely love that. I'm going to give an honorable mention to Signy. I've been really enjoying her lately. I think she could be helpful. But I'm going to shout out somebody here as my final pick that I don't think anyone would ever choose like for me. They would never guess this. I wanted it to be Killian. He's great. No. It is going to be Septimus. Okay?
Ooh.
One of the problems in this faction is damage. If you don't have like these Void Legendaries, or you missed Rathlos Blademaster and Rhonda, like who are you using for damage in this faction? I've run into this a few times with people for like coaching sessions. It's like, well, who do you go to that's actually going to do any damage? So I think that Septimus is going to be the key for a lot of people. And here's the thing. Septimus might be like the most power crept champion in the entire game. I think if we took a poll, he would be at least in the top 5, but I would put him as number 1. But with that being said, this A1, when you kill people, he grants an extra turn and then resets the enemy max HP skill. And on waves, this actually comes into play really nicely. You whittle them down, he's the last person in your turn order, and then you can start this machine gun ability of just like nuke, single target, roto style, kill everybody individually. And because the waves are going to be so tanky, the enemy max HP hit is actually going to be relevant. And then if you can get him in something like a Merciless set, where you're getting extra turns and ignoring some defense, he can still nuke. His passive can be helpful too, to keep those debuffs up. And if you need an aura, he can be an aura for you. So, you didn't see that one coming, did you?
No. Yeah, I mean, from a perspective of people talking about how he's been power crept, the reason that he was better than Coldheart is his max HP hit multiplier was so good back before that got limited to 10%. That he could one-shot the spider back before we had all these extra gear ascensions at Spider 20. It was absolutely insane to get him to do it. And if you had the right gear, you could get him to do it without a lot of help. And nowadays, that's not super exciting. Newt does it because he does the triple hitter on a lot of people's accounts, and it's easier to get all those extra crit stats. This Holy Sword was absolutely amazing back in the day, and his A1 actually does a chunk of damage as well. So, yeah, he could be a very good damage dealer. In some ways, I was listening to you and I was thinking about it. He sounds kind of like Relic Keeper, but good. Because Relic Keeper used to do that, and people were like, "Oh, Relic Keeper is a great campaign farmer because he can do the one shot down the line." It's like, no one would think that nowadays.
Another cool thing about him too is that he doesn't need books. All of his books are just going to damage. So if you don't want to book him, you don't have to. That's very rare these days. So.
Yeah, I mean, I would be in line for a buff for Septimus. Septimus definitely needs some buff to make that max HP hit relevant again. But in fact, I would have no problem if Septimus became the only one that could ignore that 10 AP cap, because I think that would actually put him back into a meta of some kind.
Well, any other last thoughts here before we wrap up the video?
No, I mean, we've talked about a lot of champions here. There's a lot of things that are going to become more important again. We pointed at a couple of them. Obviously, block buffs is a great skill. We didn't talk about it enough in some cases, I think, here. Ally protection is going to become super valuable again. Poisons hopefully should become more interesting and more valuable again. So, it's going to be a lot about the team competition and its composition, and it's going to be about what you can bring. And obviously, every account is going to play differently.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's one of the things I love about Faction Wars is in Raid, every account plays differently anyway, but it's never more apparent than in Faction Wars. And I think that's absolutely awesome and makes Faction Wars some of the best content in the game. So I'm super looking forward to this, and I appreciate you bringing me on.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's been a blast talking about these value surge champions. I think the best advice, though, for all of this Faction War stuff is just save a little bit of resources. Save a set of 5-star chickens so you can go and, rank up one of these underrated champions that you are thinking is going to help you. We've mentioned so many insane picks here, and depending on your roster, you might have these champions, but hopefully the thought process is what counts here, and it got you thinking, well, who could help me on my account? But either way, hit us up in the comments with what your thoughts are on our picks, some underrated picks that you have, and again, make sure you go check out my dude Bront. If you're not subscribed to him yet on YouTube, go make sure you do that. And thanks for being here, man. Thanks for taking some time before you have to go to work. Appreciate you.
Yeah, it's always fun. Love talking with you, and I'm sure we will probably talk about this stuff at least once more time before when this gets out. We were delayed a little bit in filming this because we suspect the patch is coming out within the next couple days. So
Yeah.
this should be super relevant. Heck, it might even be released by the time this video gets launched. So let us know how right we were. Let us know how wrong. If you got any picks that we thought about, let us know in the comments. And definitely appreciate being on.
Awesome, man. Thanks so much. All right, guys. We'll see you in the next video. Have a great day.